Prepare to experience the strongest radio allowable by law. Secrets will be revealed. Myths dispelled. From the studio gym where excuses never apply, it's Superhuman Radio with your host, Carl Lenore.
Hey. Excuse me. Welcome back to another episode of Superhuman Radio. We have a serious topic today. We're going to talk about brain cancer or brain tumors, and specifically glioblastoma, which there is thought to be no cure for. I guess if they remove it, that's kind of a cure, but I don't think they always get to remove it. I don't think ionizing radiation works against it. And as most people know, chemo doesn't get into the brain unless you have a defective brain, blood-brain barrier, that is. So most people who are diagnosed with glioblastoma die from it. Now, the irony is that they consider glioblastoma rare because it only affects about 200,000 people a year. To me, that's a lot, which only tells you that the other types of brain cancers out there, which happen with a higher occurrence, I mean, the numbers are scary. The annual growth rate of brain cancer, all forms, tumors, and others, is about 3% per year right now in the United States. Globally, I don't know what that number is. It's clear that we're seeing more and more. It's not as rare as we thought. Everybody knows someone who's had a tumor in their brain, or at least some type of unexplained cancer in their brain. And it's worrisome because, you know, tumors around the body, a lot of times they can be removed. They can be destroyed with ionizing radiation. They can be controlled with therapies. But your brain is, you know, you don't want to F with your brain. Somebody go and cut a tumor out and all of a sudden your whole left side of your body doesn't work anymore. So we're going to talk about some possibilities of emerging therapies when we look at phenotypes, different types of people, and what they bring to the party that may make them more susceptible. Later in the show, we're going to talk about something a little bit more fun. That's men's underwear with Robert Patton, and we'll get into that in just a second. First, we have to thank our title sponsor, and that is none other than Legendary Foods, who, by the way, I think is now available in the UK through Amazon on UK. They took what was the Pop-Tart and they reimagined it, made it more delicious than a Pop-Tart, less than 1 gram of sugar, 4 to 5 net carbs, 20 grams of high-quality protein. And they taste so good, your kids will eat them. I don't mean they'll eat them begrudgingly like a protein bar. They will eat them before you come home from work. The box will be empty. That's how delicious they are. When kids eat a healthy snack, it means it tastes delicious because they're not like adults where we're going to eat things that are good for us even though they taste like crap. Go to shrnetwork.biz/legendary. Use the code SHR10 to save 10% off and let them know that Carl sent you. Now, without further delay, a returning guest, my friend Andrew Scarborough. How you doing, Andrew?
Yeah, I'm really good, thanks. I'm still alive and still doing well.
We're going to talk about your story in a second because I want to set the table for this discussion. And he brings with him Isabella Cooper. How are you, Isabella?
Hello, very good, thank you.
So, some people may have heard your first 2 shows we did. The very first one was your diagnosis, and the second one was you beat the odds. But just kind of give us the Reader's Digest version. You would diagnose, if I recall properly, with an astrocytoma, right?
Yeah, correct. So astrocytoma, it's the star-shaped cells in the brain. I was diagnosed with, more specifically, an anaplastic astrocytoma. So all that means is an astrocytoma that's displaying anaplasia. So it's malignant. and I was diagnosed after a brain hemorrhage on a train that left me with grand mal seizures and a large mass of abnormal blood vessels in the brain, which after the hemorrhage caused it to scatter cells all over my brain, which we later found out were highly aggressive cancer cells. And so I had surgery to remove most of the tumor. I then had some treatment before realizing that my tumor was not chemosensitive and of a very poor prognosis. So more specifically, there are two mutations that are determining those conditions whereby it's chemosensitive and you have a poor prognosis. So this was, in my case, I was IDH1 wild type, which is supposed to be the bad one, and MGMT, unmethylated MGMT. And MGMT is DNA repair protein, whereby if the gene is unmethylated, then treatment with chemo and radiation is supposed to be ineffective. So I abandoned those treatments, and to cut a long story short, to come off my anti-epileptic drugs and to manage my epilepsy, I put myself on a very strict ketogenic diet. In the literature, it's called an oligoanthogenic ketogenic diet, because there are certain foods, even on a ketogenic diet, that if you have the type of epilepsy that I had, which is called reflex epilepsy, meaning it's not spontaneous, you can have seizures as a kind of like allergic reaction to foods.
Mm-hmm.
I found that out with lots of trial and error and reading the literature. And over time, I had things like hyperbaric oxygen therapy, added in a bioavailable form of magnesium, boswellic acids, and hyperbaric oxygen therapy. And over time, the enhancement that was showing on my scans was improving, and my scar tissue was improving. And so I managed to come completely off all my medication. It took 2 years, and over time I've just been getting better and better. From that point, I decided to go back to studying. So I studied focused on cancer biology to try and understand why I was doing so well, and to get a firmer grasp on brain tumor metabolism, because that was my main focus, especially after I'd completely controlled my epilepsy without medication. That allowed me to focus a lot more closely on this, and then to get involved in research. And that's what I'm doing now. So I'm heavily involved in brain cancer research, and along with my colleague Isabella, who I studied with and I'm now working with on this cancer metabolism study, we're aiming to have this work as a landmark study that can be built upon future studies, and it can allow us to see what metabolic interventions can be effective for establishing a metabolic phenotype of glioblastoma.
I also want to mention something else. When you were diagnosed, you were a personal trainer, weren't you?
Yeah, I was working.
Well, I want to set the stage, because I think that, you were young, you were active, you understood the components of fitness and health, and yet you developed this. So, it's an important thing to kind of, since we're talking about phenotypes, you were probably not the phenotype that you would think would have developed an astrocytoma, right? Did we just lost your audio? I don't know. Oh, you muted yourself somehow. Okay, now you're unmuted. So answer that question. Did you weren't the phenotype you would think that would develop a brain tumor, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought so. I was on a pescatarian diet at the time, and I thought that was like the best diet ever.
Right.
And I was told that that was going to protect me against any kind of disease, let alone cancer. And at the time, I was also doing a master's in nutritional therapy. So yeah, that's actually when I learned about ketogenic diets, but I dismissed it at the time.
Isabella, is there a problem with our audio? I saw you adjusting things. Everything okay?
Yeah, I don't know. It just automatically switched to mute for some reason. I'm not sure. Just
Okay.
keep an eye on it.
So let's talk about this study that you are endeavoring. So when you talk about a phenotype, explain, and maybe Isabella can do this, explain to the audience what that means and what the hoped endpoint of the study would be.
So in my research, I'm studying the metabolic phenotypes of people in groups, let's say. So groups of people where, we consider them to be very healthy, to not be presenting with any disease. And then on a spectrum, when they get to a point where they actually present with overt disease, obviously there's a trajectory that happens in between. And so first and foremost, obviously the most obvious would be type 2 diabetes, obesity. We know they're highly associated with a lot of disease. So that would be a metabolic phenotype. And there are blood markers associated with that, hyperglycemia being the most obvious one. But insulin resistance and hyperinsulinemia being the less obvious, but sort of driver that's preceding the hyperglycemia. And what we do know is that people who have type 2 diabetes or obesity have a much higher rate of cancer. And so there's some relationship going on there. And we also know that, there's a lot of investigation going on right now with metabolic therapy for cancer patients, as well as for type 2 diabetics, as well as for obesity. And that metabolic therapy is with a focus to regress those markers that are associated, either just associated or causally associated with the diseases. And those ones that really flag is the insulin, excess insulin, hyperinsulinemia. And then there are many more, but that one sort of being on the top of the list, let's say. And so in my research, I investigate people who we've classified into phenotype groups, and the first phenotype we've created a classification would be sort of akin to how evolutionary humans likely evolved, and that is where they likely didn't have a high amount of access to very starchy, farinaceous or sugary sweet fruit, carbohydrates type foods, or they wouldn't be eating 3 meals a day with snacks in between. And so there would be much more time restricted eating, fasting, things like that. And so that sort of lifestyle today, mirroring our evolution, essentially would minimally be stimulating insulin secretion, and then the consequences of that on other markers of the body. So that's the phenotype 1, evolutionary human sort of phenotype. And then the phenotype 2 is somewhat around what we currently are classifying as the sort of control, supposed healthy group that's representative of the normative population. So that would be people who don't appear to have any disease, seem to be fit, not necessarily sporty, not overweight, no hyperglycemia, no hyperinsulinemia, but they are following the food guidelines of Britain, America, and other countries where it's sort of saying eat 3 meals a day. There's at least 1/3, if not more, of your plate is starchy farinaceous carbohydrates in the form of grains, fruits, and roots, types of foods, fruits, lots of fruits, and obviously some junk food, things like that. So, but aren't presenting with any disease. That's phenotype 2, and they are the people that are used to create the reference ranges for blood markers, essentially. And then phenotype 3 is subclassified into 4 stages. And phenotype 3 is the phenotype where your insulin levels are getting higher than what is healthier for you. And not necessarily, you can't necessarily see that by looking at the reference range, because what your insulin value could be slap bang in the middle of the normative population number, but actually be quite pathological for your individual self. And so within the phenotype 3 range, you've got stage 1 to 4, and this is a spectrum where, like for stage 2, it's where you get pre-diabetes, where there's a little bit of hypoglycemia. And then stage 3 is where you have overt hypoglycemia. So stage 1 is where you have the hyperinsulinemia and no hypoglycemia, because it's the excess insulin, the slightly elevated insulin, that's actually suppressing a pathological glucose number. And then stage 4 is essentially where your pancreas is really sort of packing it in, not doing very well. And you would present with either type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, cancer, Alzheimer's disease, these diseases that are strongly associated with metabolic dysregulation. And then the final phenotype is essentially, again, a low insulin phenotype, but this is a phenotype where people have come from having a metabolic dysregulation, and then they've gone to restricting dietary carbohydrates enough to be able to produce ketones, because that's what happens when you restrict insulin enough, then you're able to produce ketones. And in this setting, there is a similarity to phenotype 1, but they're not the same, because they don't have this metabolic flexibility that exists in phenotype 1 people. So bringing into that, so I'm studying phenotype 1, 2, and 3 groups of people. And with regards to cancer and brain cancer, there actually isn't a good amount of data or collated into one study, nicely controlled, where we can look at their metabolic markers, which is more than just glucose and insulin. There's a lot of other markers that come into this, everything from the hormones, serotonin, melatonin, osteocalcin, vitamin D, vitamin B, a lot of these other markers that are all part of this cycle that's involved with insulin. And to know what is the signature for people who have cancer, and then specifically with brain cancer, where do they fit on this spectrum? First, where do they fit? And then how do they progress with the treatments that they have or don't have, whichever they choose, whether they decide a particular dietary intervention or lifestyle intervention, how are they responding to those drugs? So these metabolic markers aren't being measured. And so we don't know what we don't know if we're not measuring it. So it needs to be measured.
All right. So, do you think, and you're absolutely right, for years I've been saying that doctors who just check fasting blood sugar without seeing what the pancreas is doing to keep it at that level are ignorant, because your fasting blood sugar means nothing if your pancreas is working 85% duty cycle to keep it there. And so until doctors start checking insulin levels, maybe C-peptide, and blood sugar to get a full picture of how hard your body is working to get that blood sugar where it is, these things are meaningless. We're really just letting the patient march to illness. That's it. But do you think do you really think it's insulin and not the blood sugar levels that are driving the development? Because I was once told that the brain is an ecosystem to itself. It produces its own androgens. It produces estradiol through aromatization, and it produces its own insulin when needed. So are the whole body insulin levels truly affecting the brain's insulin levels? And could it just be that glucose gets a pass? Glucose gets into the brain whenever it wants. The brain uses like 20 or 30% of the glucose that our body produces a day. Is it the insulin or is it the glucose?
It's a good question. So at the end of the day, insulin does more than just regulate glucose uptake. It regulates glucose output from the liver as well. But in actual fact, glucose, working fundamentally as an energy substrate for the cells, insulin is doing something different. So, glucose is there to feed the cells. The cells have to have a signal whether to grow more and whether to divide. And that signal is driven by the insulin.
Okay. That makes sense. Andrew, could lean body mass be the missing component in this discussion? We have people out there who are skinny fat, you know, they fit into a certain size pants and dress. They don't have a lot of body fat. And, you know, and they seem to regulate their diet well. If you look at BMI, which doesn't tell the whole story, could lean body mass have a role in this? Do we know what the effects of muscle on each of these phenotypes would be?
Well, I think just speaking for myself and my own personal experiences, I can get to therapeutic ketosis very easily with little effort. And when I first transitioned onto a ketogenic diet, it was very easy for me to do so with little adaptation. And I'm quite lean, so that's why I give that example. But I think Isabella maybe can point to looking at that more specifically.
So do you mean having more muscle mass would be a protective effect on?
Yes. In fact, let me set the stage for this. So in 2006, I did my first show with the Veterans Administration in California, where they followed a large body of men, and the strongest men lived the longest. It was like a 16 or 20-year study. The weakest men died the soonest of all-cause mortality. We have more and more studies coming out showing that the only thing that seems to affect longevity and health span in humans is the maintenance of muscle. Women to 60, men to 65, the more muscle they have going into those ages, the least likely they are to die from all-cause mortality or lose their ability to ambulate and move. Muscle needs to be paid attention to as a longevity feature and a health protector of humans. Why wouldn't it also play a role in the development of cancer?
Well, muscle, sarcopenia, so the muscle wastage, and also risk of bone fracture are two of the strongest predictors for morbidity and mortality. And they do play a very strong role on metabolic health. I mean, first of all, the amount of muscle you have on your body, the more you have, you've essentially got a larger glucose sink. And so cells are going to be able to take up excess glucose from your body to effectively make it less available to other cells that shouldn't necessarily be using so much glucose or be exposed to so much glucose. And muscle cells are essentially what are called post-mitotic. And so you really don't see cancer of your bicep very often as an example, but you see cancer of cells that have a naturally much higher turnover rate. So cells that would turn over in 3 days or 7 days or 1 month, these kind of cells are the ones that are at higher risk of turning into cancer cells. So you see it in those kind of tissues where it's glial cells in the brain or the enterocytes in the intestines or the lining of the stomach. You know, these kind of cells, liver cells, they have much greater, they're phenotypically less locked into a fully differentiated and post-mitotic. They're much more. They naturally divide. They do divide and grow. That's their.
And because they turn it over so quickly, there's a lot more opportunity to get that cell at the right moment and make it change, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. They're a lot higher risk. The exposure of their DNA even is much more exposed, and so they can be harmed much more. You know, all over. I mean, the thing with muscle cells, coming back to that, and with I'm bringing in bone cells, is because when you do things that enhance your muscle amount or quality, you are at the same time improving your bone health. And a lot of people sort of forget about this aspect, that it's actually much more intertwined than people realize, because the major bone cells that are called osteocytes are in a very, very tight communication with your muscle cells. They actually transfer to each other micro vesicles containing a lot of cargo signaling towards one another, and the fat cells. So as you're doing activity, you know, anti-gravity resistance activity, a lot of walking, your bone cells and your muscle cells communicate to one another. And one of the things about your bone cells is it also stimulates mitochondrial biogenesis in your muscles and in your fat cells. And that's going to make your cells much more capable to produce energy and reduce reactive oxygen species because it's spread between more mitochondria, and actually improve your immune function too, because your macrophages and your immune cells, they get their mitochondria from your adipocytes. And so your adipocytes need that signal from your bone cells to produce those mitochondria, and then
That's fascinating. I never knew that. That's very, very fascinating. That's really, because I'm so interested in mitochondrial farming. Like, how can I produce more? How can I produce bigger and more efficient ones? And that's I've never known that. That's really great. What I want to do, we have to take our first commercial break, but before we do that, I want to put up this banner. And this is where you can go if you want to reach out. And actually, we're looking for people who want to donate money as well. You go to beatbraincancer.co.uk, and you can donate money that will help fund this research, correct? That's what this money is going to go to fund this research, right?
Yes.
100%, yes. No admin fees, just straight to the research.
Right. And as a result of this, once you develop this phenotype, then you will be able to, we hope, you'll be able to actually dictate the therapy that will work best for that person. That's the goal, right?
Yes, it's to enable the patient to actually really take an informed approach on the therapies that they choose.
So again, the website is beatbraincancer.co.uk. Investigating the metabolic phenotype of primary glioblastoma. And obviously, while you're focused at glioblastoma, you will not be able to avoid getting information that assists in other types of brain cancers as well, I would imagine, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there you go. Check out the website, donate some money, be part of the change. Everybody wants to see progress. Be part of the progress. Drop $10. You don't have to put a lot of money in, but drop something. Go to the website and drop something. I'm going to do it today after the show. I promise you that. And we're going to take one quick commercial break. And when we come back, we'll have more of this discussion. Also, if you're watching and you are worried about this type of cancer, feel free to ask questions. You're watching and listening to Superhuman Radio. Stay tuned. We will be right back.
New Mass Pro Synthogen X2 just upped its own legendary game. To distance itself even further from the rest of the pack, Synthogen X2 now has double the key active ingredients. If you've ever wondered what steroid-like recovery feels like, Synthogen X2 delivers. See why others compare it favorably to powerful bodybuilding drugs at synthogen.com. Mass Pro Synthogen. When you train with it, you'll gain with it.
The Hercules pre-workout from Lost Empire Herbs is like no pre-workout you have ever had before. Completely natural formula designed specifically to optimize workouts, provide quicker recovery time, provide adequate nutrition, and get you away from all those no-good, overstimulating pre-workout supplements on the market today. The Hercules pre-workout blend is a mix of extracted natural herbs and mineral pitch. No fake colors, no added flavors, nothing else. Not only will Hercules pre-workout formula help your workouts, but you'll likely discover lots and lots of side effects, beneficial side effects. Go to shrnetwork.biz/Lost Empire today to learn more. GHKCU is one of the most effective peptides for rebuilding more youthful skin, reversing skin damage, diminishing wrinkles, and tightening loose skin. I personally use Restoracell with GHKCU every day. It's making an undeniable difference in the quality of my skin. Restoracell is fantastic for all types of skin. Now you can order Restoracell and save 25% when you use the code SHR25. That's SHR25. While you may be diligent in your workouts and your diet, don't neglect what people see first and foremost, and that's your skin. Go to shrnetwork.biz/blue and use code SHR25 today. I would easily say that I am the hugest proponent you will ever meet to doing anything that will improve the quality of my sleep. And that's because sleep is linked to just about every metabolic disorder we see in our population today. One of the easiest things you can do to improve the quality of your sleep is to get a pillow that can be shaped into the exact form factor that allows you to get your best night's sleep. And that is MyPillow. I've been sleeping with MyPillow for a few years now, and I can tell you that when I have to travel and stay in hotels, I don't get a good night's sleep because I don't have MyPillow with me. Right now, you can save up to 60% off of everything offered to improve the quality of your sleep at shrnetwork.biz/MyPillow when you use the code SHR. Or you can call toll-free 800-889-4938. And remember to use code SHR to save up to 60% off of everything at their website. Being superhuman means being conscientious about the choices we make. White Oak Pastures is superhuman when it comes to raising livestock. They're committed to animal welfare, land regeneration, and rural revival. They responsibly manage the entire process from the pasture to your doorstep. High-quality, pasture-raised, great-tasting meat from a farm you can trust. Full nose-to-tail selections. They even have options for your pet. Go to shrnetwork.biz/white oak and use the code SUPERHUMAN to save 10% off your entire first order. Are you suffering from signs of an unhappy gut? Diversity is the key to healthy, robust inner ecosystem. Body Ecology probiotic liquids are made by fermenting organic seeds, biodynamic brown rice, and chickpeas together to create a diverse culture found nowhere else on Earth. It's the secret to restoring your gut's microbiome for a healthier digestive tract, improved immune function, and longevity. Take 20% off by visiting the website shrnetwork.biz/bodyeco. shrnetwork.biz/bodyeco. That's BODYECO. And using the code SHR20.
Move over, superheroes. This is the Superhuman Channel.
Hey, welcome back. I got to plug a sponsor. So this holiday, this 4th of July holiday, I really did some damage drinking a lot of alcohol because I was out of my Feel Free, which is a plant medicine product that I love. And I take this actually pre-workout now. I take a third of a bottle pre-workout, and it both stimulates and focuses me. Plus, it rids any aches and pains I have that will make me not train as hard as I want. And if you take a half a bottle, you have a euphoric effect, and you don't need alcohol. Sadly, I drank 3/4 of a bottle of tequila 4th of July, and Lisa had to drag me around by my hand because I was wobbling so much, because I didn't have my Feel Free. Don't be out of it. Third of a bottle as a pre-workout, half a bottle if you want to be socially lubricated, without all the side effects of alcohol. You'll feel great. Go to shrnetwork.biz/feel-free. Use the code SHR40 for 40% off. I promise you, if you try this stuff, you will love it. Okay. Yeah, I drank way too much this weekend. I usually don't drink that much, but I learned how to mix my own margaritas, and I just kept drinking them. They were great, especially since I didn't have to pay $16 every time I wanted one. Okay, so let's get back to the topic here. What is hyproteinemia?
Hyproteinemia?
Say it again?
Is that one of the questions?
Yeah, what is it? Hyproteinemia. What is it? I know it's high protein in the blood, right? In the urine too, right?
That's what it sounds like.
I mean, it sort of depends on what context it's being asked. I mean, I presume it's being asked in the context of it being measured when someone has cancer, is suffering cancer.
Yeah, because you mentioned hyproteinemia earlier, did you not?
I don't think we did, but
okay. I'm sorry. I made a mistake then, perhaps. Okay.
No
hypoglycemia?
Oh, no, I know what hypoglycemia is.
Yeah. I mean, of course, there would be cases of hyproteinemia. I mean, when you have, unfortunately, in cancer, you can really suffer cancer cachexia, which is a state of sarcopenia, obviously.
And yet another reason to start off with more muscle before you catch cancer. So there you go.
Absolutely.
What about the role of the microbiome in all of this, right? We did a show just recently that shows that two amino acids are converted to something that promotes multiple sclerosis lesion growth in the brain. I always thought it was grains and starches because I just think grains and starches are, the devil. But it turned out that these were two amino acids that were leading to the lesion growth in the brain, which implicates the microbiome of some people to do things with these amino acids that don't happen in other people. What about the role of the microbiome in this discussion of the development of brain tumors?
Well, I mean, the thing is, the microbiome is a reflection of general health to start with. So it's a reflection of what you're putting in your body that enhances supporting the growth and support of a healthy biome or healthy gut. And when I mean gut, I don't just mean post stomach. I mean from the mouth all the way,
right?
Healthy from the beginning. And so what is good and what is bad, removing what is bad and keeping what is good. And so it's a reflection of this more than anything else, because, let's just take a really sort of oversimplified example. When people do ask me, well, what's if I take these probiotics? And I say, well, if you don't have the right conditions in your small intestines, you could take fantastic probiotics that are designed to survive your stomach acidity that would reach your small intestines. But if your small intestines weren't hospitable, the correct temperature, pH, moisture, all of the things that those bacteria would want to live in, then they're not going to survive and do you any good. And the reason why I say this is, if I can try to simplify it, normally in a really healthy person, they'd have a very strong stomach acidity. So this would mean a pH of less than 2 and even 1 when they are eating. Like a baby has less than pH 1, actually, very strong stomach acidity. And this is the biggest stimulator of a hormone in your small intestine called cholecystokinin, CKK. CKK then triggers the spleen to empty out its waste products into the liver to make the bile acids, and the gallbladder to secrete those bile acids. And the CKK also stimulates the pancreas to release its pancreatic digestive enzymes. So with this really strong stomach acid being the biggest trigger for CKK, as this pH of under 2 would come into the small intestines, it would then trigger the pancreatic juices to come in and neutralize and therefore raise that pH to a more alkaline profile, which becomes then hospitable to the biome that needs to live in the small intestines.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a still acidic stomach acid, so pH 3, pH 4, but that's not a strong stomach acidity, then that pH 3 or 4 is going to move into the small intestines and is not going to strongly trigger the CKK. So then you're not going to get that really good signal to secrete those pancreatic neutralizing digestive enzymes. So now your small intestines is going to stay at a pH 3 or 4 instead of having that neutralization that's going to raise it to a more alkaline profile. So that becomes an acidic environment now in your small intestines that is really inhospitable to the enzymes that need to function at their optimal pH and to the microbiome that needs to live in their optimal pH. And so it's really important that you are actually focusing on maintaining a healthy stomach function. So that's a strong acid. So then that does come back to avoiding high carbohydrate, starchy grain, but also strongly alkaloid foods. So, I probably will get quite attacked on this, but, kale and spinach are strongly alkalizing. And so these are going to really raise your stomach alkalinity.
Right.
And then you're going to, over time, have this problem that's going to develop where you don't trigger enough cholecystokinin to neutralize that acidity and then have the alkalinity of the small intestine. Now, some people would say, well, then that's fine because I'll just drink bicarb and have the alkalinity already going through. But that doesn't work because the minerals, the essential minerals that are the cofactor for your enzymes. So gene transcription requires magnesium as an example, or your thyroid requires selenium. These essential minerals, they precipitate out of solution once your stomach pH is above 2.5. So you need your stomach pH to stay under 2.5 so that those minerals stay bound to their amino acid ligand so that they're bioavailable to you to absorb in your intestines. So you can't sort of skip that step of acidity, basically.
Right. We keep thinking we're smarter than our bodies. It's funny.
I think also sometimes people forget it's a bidirectional process with the gut and the brain. So even every thought and feeling you have can impact on, the microbes in your gut and affect you. So it's not. And if you're having MRI scans and you're having the contrast agent, and we know that can be retained in certain regions in the brain and in bone, that can have a huge amount of impact on the gut and everywhere else.
Several of the contrast agents have been pulled off the market here in the United States because they've been shown to have long-lasting toxic effects on the people. And in fact, I just had a friend who had to go for an MRI with contrast, and I said, find out what they're using for the contrast, because like that stuff sucks.
You know? The most common brand now is called Dotarem, which is supposedly the safest form, but even that has been shown to be retained, and we're simply not testing enough. So we only usually find this as an incidental factor. And often some of the symptoms, for example, particular regions of the brain, for example, the dentate nucleus, which is kind of in the center of the brain. It's called dentate nucleus because it's like a set of teeth. And what those nuclei do is they're responsible for fine motor movements, which a lot of brain tumor patients, or not just brain tumors, but other conditions, are having monitoring for. And often they will mistake it for symptoms of the disease when in fact it could be gadolinium retentions. And I'm actually writing a book about this, which is why I'm interested in it. But it won't be ready until the end of the year. But it's definitely been something I've looked into a lot, and I haven't had contrast agent. I haven't had the contrast agent for a number of years now. And
when the doctor tells you, well, this is the safest form of this that we have, they're comparing it to something that kills you instantly instead of just makes you cripple in 30 or 40 years. Whenever they say, oh, this is the safest, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean it's safe. It just means if you put all these other crappy things together, this one hurts you a little bit less. So it's the safest one we have. And,
I'm not saying, just as a side note, I'm not saying people definitely shouldn't have the contrast agent, but just be aware that it could be causing an issue. So maybe have a test if you're concerned.
And also because the way that they can affect you, it can mislead you into thinking there's disease progression. So when there actually isn't, but unfortunately because of the side effects that you can have from contrast agent.
So here's something interesting. I have a friend who is diagnosed with the type of brain cancer, but I don't know how to explain this. So the cancer form is usually found in the lungs. She doesn't have lung cancer, but she has this form of cancer in her brain. And have you ever heard of anything like that before, where a traditional form of lung cancer has found its way into the brain?
Yes.
You have?
Yeah.
Can you talk about what is this from? What is it, a fungus? A lot of people say, oh, it's a fungus that's causing this cancer.
I mean, the reality is that anything that massively harms mitochondria, in my view, has the potential to induce cancer, tumorigenic transformation. So, and again, I think that some of the best research I think is done in terms of metastatic cancer as well is by Dr. Thomas Seyfried, who proposed there's a hybridization with the immune cells, macrophages that would be hybridizing with cancers, but they're dysregulated themselves. So instead of consuming, phagocytosing these tumor cells and successfully digesting them, instead they're sort of lysing open these tumor cells, and the mitochondria inside of those tumor cells are then taking over like little parasites and taking brain of the macrophages of the immune cells. And these immune cells don't need to go through this EMT transition, this transition of the ability to move in and out of the bloodstream and to other areas of the body. They already have that phenotype already. And if they've been taken over by pathological mitochondria that are giving quite different signals, and so dysregulating them, then there's a strong potential to move elsewhere in the body. And typically they move to hypoxic areas in the body, inflamed areas in the body, and then can make a new home, essentially. Is it likely that you have people who have a sort of dysplasic sort of cells in the lungs, and then that could move? That's a possibility. But definitely, I have come across people who have a lung type of cancer in the brain.
Fascinating. I've never heard of it. Before we take this break, I just want to promote this again. If you want to help investigating the metabolic phenotypes of primary glioblastoma, go to beatbraincancer.co.uk. And I know economy is tough right now here in the United States and probably in the UK too. But you don't have to dig deep in your pocket. If you could just donate $5, $10, this would have a huge effect on the research. And this research may come back to help you. You may donate, and when this study is published, there may be information that pretty much shows you that you're on the right track to develop one of these types of cancers. So again, beatbraincancer.co.uk and donate what you can. And we are going to take a quick commercial break. And when we come back, I want to talk about metabolic flexibility. And really, is this what we should be striving for if we are concerned about cancer? Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Remember those rectangular toaster pastries you used to love when you were a kid? Well, Legendary Foods has just made them better. The new cake-style tasty pastry is like nothing you've ever had before. With 20 grams of high-quality protein and less than 1 gram of sugar, you'll feel like you're cheating, but you're not. Go to shrnetwork.biz/legendary and use the code SHR10 to save 10% off your purchase of tasty pastries. Now available in cookies and cream, red velvet cake, birthday cake, blueberry, strawberry, brown sugar cinnamon, and hot fudge sundae. Go to shrnetwork.biz/legendary and use code SHR10 today. Are you 35 or older? Every year after puberty, your growth hormone decreases sometimes by 50% by the age of 35, and it only keeps going down from there. This affects everything from making it harder to recover from workouts, sleep, and a general loss of a sense of well-being. It also affects your ability to get and stay lean. BioPro Plus is the first of its kind, 100% non-synthetic alternative to prescription synthetic growth hormone treatments. All the benefits without any of the needles or side effects and 100% safe. Previously only available through doctors, you can go to shrnetwork.biz/biopro, that's BIOPRO, and use code SHR30 for $30 off today. There have been no new innovations in men's underwear for hundreds of years. That's all about to change with Sheath. Sheath creates 2 separate compartments for your man stuff so it doesn't get smashed into a mound and sweaty and stinky. I won't wear any other underwear now that I've learned about Sheath, and you won't either. Go to shrnetwork.biz/Sheath underwear. That's SHEATHUNDERWEAR. Use code SUPERHUMAN to save 20% off. I promise you, once you try a pair of Sheath underwear, you will never wear anything else. Are you suffering from signs of an unhappy gut? Diversity is the key to healthy, robust inner ecosystem. Body Ecology probiotic liquids are made by fermenting organic seeds, biodynamic brown rice, and chickpeas together to create a diverse culture found nowhere else on Earth. It's the secret to restoring your gut's microbiome for a healthier digestive tract, improved immune function, and longevity. Take 20% off by visiting the website shrnetwork.biz/bodyeco. shrnetwork.biz/bodyeco. That's BODYECO. And using the code SHR20. Hey, you've heard me talk about mass enzymes from Bioptimizers for years now. It's a safe and natural digestive enzyme supplement that's for men or women that specifically helps you digest the protein in your diet. I never have a meal without at least 3 Masszyme capsules, and that's because I want every bit of amino acids from the protein I eat day in and day out to help this 64-year-old body continue to build new muscle and strength. Well, I can tell you how you can get a free bottle of Masszymes plus 3 free ebooks as a bonus, total gift worth over $81. You'll not only receive a free bottle of the best digestive enzyme for turning all the protein you eat into muscle-building amino acids, but you'll also receive the book From Sick to Superhuman, Plant-Based Superfood Delights, and the Ultimate Carnivore Cookbook, absolutely free with your free bottle of Masszymes. Take advantage of this opportunity fast because it won't last long. Go to shrnetwork.biz/freemassme. That's FREEMASSME and see why I will never stop taking Masszymes.
Dogs should be powered by fat and protein, not carbs. That's why Visionary Pet makes low-carb, ketogenic dog food for dogs of all breeds and life stages. From kibble to freeze-dried and even low-carb treats, all Visionary Pet recipes are very low-carb, ketogenic, and made with 100% real meat protein. Shop now and use code SHR for 20% off your first order today. Your dog deserves the lifelong benefits of optimal nutrition. Make the switch to Visionary and see why smart dogs eat low carb.
You're listening to the Superhuman Channel. Don't hate us because we feel good.
Welcome back. So, one of the things that I learned from Dr. Thomas Seyfried, he's been on the show twice, I think, and actually, to be very honest, it was Dr. Mark McCarty who did a study. He's from UCLA, but he had to do the study in a hospital in Mexico City. Around 2007, he was on the show, and he was the guy who started this whole every other day fasting diet. He did it with rodents. And all they cared about back then was sirtuins. Oh, we're going to live forever, sirtuins. But I started practicing time-restricted feeding back then because I thought, well, it'll keep me lean and it doesn't interrupt my diet to build muscle. So I've been a 16-8 guy. I don't even know how long anymore. But I can go for 2 days without food. I can, and I don't need caffeine to get there. But my point is, do you think that if more people understood the evolutionary value of time-restricted feeding and started to eat more on an 8-16 type of a level, do you think we'd see less of all cancers, including brain cancer?
I mean, I think so, but of course, there could be compensatory habits, so not eating and then binging when you eat, and that could be really bad for you too. So we can't blanket say it's just the time restricted feeding. So because there is that kind of binging, feasting and fasting, where it's binging on the wrong food and thinking, well, I fasted, so now I can go to town and eat absolute rubbish.
Yeah, I'd say a lot of it is. A lot of it would be related to what you choose to eat when you start to eat again.
Yeah, I know. I learned that the hard way. So I actually did some experiments. I think it was probably about 6 or 7 years ago, where I would have 1 meal a day. This is before the whole 1 meal a day fascination occurred. But what I did was I trained early in the morning. I came into the studio. I did my show, and then around 2:30, 3 o'clock, I had 1 meal, but it was a meal of well over 3,000 calories, and I assisted my need to have voracious hunger with peptides. I was using GHRP6, which is a prokinetic gastric kinetic, and also it's a ghrelin agonist, so it makes you really hungry, and I would take like 250 micrograms of that and wait for it to kick in. And I would drink a half gallon of raw unpasteurized milk, and I would eat hamburgers, and I would just eat probably for a good solid hour, but then I wouldn't eat again to the next day. The problem, I think, with time restricted feeding for most people is what you're pointing out, Andy. they think that in that 8-hour time, they can just eat continuously, and they break their fast with really crappy, high insulinogenic foods that causes this boomerang and this boomerang effect. And for 8 hours, they just eat nothing but crap. And that's not the goal. I agree with you 100%. I think that if you're really interested in learning more about time-restricted feeding, you have to understand that during the time that you're eating, you can't eat like an a-hole. It's not going to work. But no, I really am a big fan of time-restricted feeding. It's convenient, and I really think it mimics our evolutionary journey. The reason that we are here is because we have ancestors that didn't pass out and become food because they couldn't find food. So.
It would be counterproductive for survival. You know, if you imagine that food is slightly harder to come by and you really have to go and hunt or forage for it, then as it's not available, if you had a decline in energy and brain focus, then this would be negative for your optimal survival. So in actual fact, as you go deeper into a fasted state, so long as you are overall nutritionally replete and have enough stored calories in your body, then in actual fact, your ability for mental focus and the protein stasis, so as to not lose that protein, your body will preserve the protein it has, so that you have the physical ability to go and get that food, is enhanced in actual fact. And we have evolved from those. We are the survivors, the ancestors,
right,
of those ancestors.
I'd say as well, a lot of it is due to electrolytes. So with me, I do a lot of fasting, and for the longer fasts, I have to supplement with electrolytes so that I can, firstly, actually staves off hunger if I feel hungry.
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, it stops me having breakthrough seizures. So yeah, it's a double effect.
And I would also say a word of caution. I mean, I'm a fan of time restricted feeding and fasting. However, I definitely would say that there are groups of people where it's not optimal for them because they haven't resolved other health issues yet. And one of them would be, I would say, people who are suffering high levels of stress, where they already have so much stress in their body that the additional stress of time restricted feeding actually can be negative for their health. So when you're stressed, you're naturally elevating your adrenaline and noradrenaline in America, we call epinephrine and norepinephrine. And so this is having an effect on your adrenal glands. And this could negatively affect your health, increase your glucocorticoid signaling. That glucocorticoid signaling is going to release more hepatic glucose out. And so you're going to end up with a response of an increased insulin response just from this level of stress. So for people, extended fasting, time restricted feeding, where you're restricting it till lunchtime or later before eating, then this could be more stressful on their body. And so in that respect, then I would recommend instead to actually break your fast early in the morning with a high fat protein, nutrient dense diet. And instead of sort of waiting till lunch and dinner to eat, instead have breakfast and lunch and then fast later on in the day, so that you can reduce that stress level.
I've actually experimented with that. It works good. So I would get up in the morning and break my fast first thing in the morning, but I would stop eating earlier in the evening, like around 4 o'clock. I fast. My last meal is done. I've chewed and swallowed by 6 p.m. And then I go to bed by 9 p.m. I'm a very boring person. And I have experimented with stopping my eating earlier by 2 hours and extending it on that end instead of extending it on in the mornings. And it works well. The real problem with time-restricted feeding is a lot of people hear about it, but they are not metabolically flexible yet, and they have to start very slow. They may need to fast for 4 hours, and they get the shakes. You may have to back it down to 3. Then you have to gently progress, and also your food choices will allow you to become more metabolically flexible as well. But you're right; you can't just jump into this diet and go, "Oh, I'm just going to fast." No, some people can't. They literally get the shakes. Hypoglycemia is horrible. It causes anxiety, sweating, subjective tremor, and they're like, "Oh God, I'm dying. I need to eat something right away." Yeah.
And this is where you sort of get that negative feedback loop where people think I'm hypoglycemic. That's showing you I need the glucose. And in some ways it kind of is in a weird, bizarre way. But I often point out to people, if you wake up hungry, where you really feel like you're going to chew your nails off or bite someone else's head off, and if you at 3 o'clock shaking because you need that coffee or tea, and then you need a nap as well, these are two very, very strong signals that you do not have metabolic flexibility, and there's something not right in your metabolic health, essentially your mitochondria, when we boil it down to a nutshell. Because we are hybrid engines. We can fuel very well off of fat, very well off of glucose, very well off of ketones, and worst case scenario for protein. And so, a healthy body can actually switch very easily between all of them and not really present with getting the shakes or not feeling very well.
Right. All right, so I want to promote a couple things here before we end this interview. First of all, again, beatbraincancer.co.uk. Go there and donate some money for this research. This research may help you or someone in your family someday. Also, Andrew, you said you have a book. Will it be out the end of this year, did you say?
It's supposed to be. I'm on track to finish by the end of the year.
He doesn't want to get to it.
I've been writing it for 2 years already. So.
Okay. And the book is about?
It's about the safety of gadolinium-based contrast agents.
Okay.
And also the history of them and how to treat gadolinium retention as well.
And Isabella Cooper, you have something coming up in the UK, you said, yes, right?
One of our studies that we're looking into metabolic phenotypes is in the metabolic phenotype 3, which is the hyperinsulinemia group. And although there are multiple ways to measure that, the sort of most obvious one is being overweight. If you've got that excess weight above your genes, then you're likely to be hyperinsulinic. And we're investigating all the blood markers that we measure in super healthy, ketogenic people who are restricting carbohydrates, never had any disease before, all the way through to brain cancer patients as well. And so then to investigate what their profile is like, and we have a little intervention that I can't disclose right now, but it's quite exciting stuff. And so if people would like to be interested in being a participant in this trial, then to contact myself or Andrew, and they would need to be able to come to London twice and take some time off to spend a whole day in the lab, because it would be 8 hours inside the lab, and the actual investigation period for each participant is 3 months. And then obviously when we meet, I could just explain more detail of what the trial is.
And so, could they contact you through the beatbraincancer.co.uk website?
We have an email address that they can contact through. Alternatively, they could also email me at bellamitochondria@gmail.com.
Bella Mitochondria. I love that. That's fantastic. At gmail.com.
Well, another avenue is they could contact Brains Trust, because we're in partnership with a charity called Brains Trust.
Okay. So there you go. If you're going to be in London and you want to be part of this, please reach out. Did we miss anything?
That's it. I mean, we could talk nonstop about this subject.
I know. All right. Well, look, I want to thank you so much for making time to be on the show today. This is an important topic, and please share the show, folks, because this is one that could actually change a life. I ask people to share the shows all the time, but think about it. If you know somebody who has a form of brain cancer, nobody out there is talking about it like this. So please share the show. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Take care. We're going to take one quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to be joined by Robert Patton to talk about something exciting for men, and that's men's underwear. Don't go away. Hey, you've heard me talk about mass enzymes from Bioptimizers for years now. It's a safe and natural digestive enzyme supplement that's for men or women that specifically helps you digest the protein in your diet. I never have a meal without at least 3 Masszyme capsules, and that's because I want every bit of amino acids from the protein I eat day in and day out to help this 64-year-old body continue to build new muscle and strength. Well, I can tell you how you can get a free bottle of Masszymes plus 3 free ebooks as a bonus, total gift worth over $81. You'll not only receive a free bottle of the best digestive enzyme for turning all the protein you eat into muscle-building amino acids, but you'll also receive the book From Sick to Superhuman, Plant-Based Superfood Delights, and the Ultimate Carnivore Cookbook, absolutely free with your free bottle of Masszymes. Take advantage of this opportunity fast because it won't last long. Go to shrnetwork.biz/freemassme, that's FREEMASSME, and see why I will never stop taking Masszyme. Are you 35 or older? Every year after puberty, your growth hormone decreases sometimes by 50% by the age of 35, and it only keeps going down from there. This affects everything from making it harder to recover from workouts, sleep, and a general loss of a sense of well-being. It also affects your ability to get and stay lean. BioPro Plus is the first of its kind, 100% non-synthetic alternative to prescription synthetic growth hormone treatments. All the benefits without any of the needles or side effects and 100% safe. Previously only available through doctors, you can go to shrnetwork.biz/biopro, that's BIOPRO, and use code SHR30 for $30 off today. There have been no new innovations in men's underwear for hundreds of years. That's all about to change with Sheath. Sheath creates 2 separate compartments for your man stuff so it doesn't get smashed into a mound and sweaty and stinky. I won't wear any other underwear now that I've learned about Sheath, and you won't either. Go to shrnetwork.biz/sheath underwear. That's SHEATHUNDERWEAR. Use code SUPERHUMAN to save 20% off. I promise you, once you try a pair of Sheath underwear, you will never wear anything else. I would easily say that I am the hugest proponent you will ever meet to doing anything that will improve the quality of my sleep. And that's because sleep is linked to just about every metabolic disorder we see in our population today. One of the easiest things you can do to improve the quality of your sleep is to get a pillow that can be shaped into the exact form factor that allows you to get your best night's sleep. And that is MyPillow. I've been sleeping with MyPillow for a few years now, and I can tell you that when I have to travel and stay in hotels, I don't get a good night's sleep because I don't have MyPillow with me. Right now, you can save up to 60% off of everything offered to improve the quality of your sleep at shrnetwork.biz/mypillow when you use the code SHR. Or you can call toll-free 800-889-4938. And remember to use code SHR to save up to 60% off of everything at their website. Being superhuman means being conscientious about the choices we make. White Oak Pastures is superhuman when it comes to raising livestock. They're committed to animal welfare, land regeneration, and rural revival. They responsibly manage the entire process from the pasture to your doorstep. High quality, pasture raised, great tasting meat from a farm you can trust. Full nose to tail selections. They even have options for your pet. Go to shrnetwork.biz/whiteoak and use the code SUPERHUMAN to save 10% off your entire first order.
New Mass Pro Synthogen X2 just upped its own legendary game. To distance itself even further from the rest of the pack, Synthogen X2 now has double the key active ingredients. If you've ever wondered what steroid-like recovery feels like, Synthogen X2 delivers. See why others compare it favorably to powerful bodybuilding drugs at synthogen.com. Mass Pro Synthogen. When you train with it, you'll gain with it.
Oh.
Welcome back to Superhuman Radio. We're being joined by Robert Patton. I have a great appreciation for Robert Patton. I love his underwear. And they are the epitome of function and necessity, because nobody's thought about underwear the way Robert Patton has thought about. And you were deployed when you came up with this idea, right?
Yes, sir. I was on my second tour in Iraq. I was a sergeant. I was leading my team, and but it was just hotter, I would say, than the devil's. You know what?
Yeah.
And I have sensitive skin, so like my particular situation was much more severe than a normal person might be. So but everyone can really benefit from the reduction of the skin on skin contact and the less moisture buildup, and keeps everything cooler and dry and just more comfortable. We have a lot of our customers are so like, that's all they'll wear, like you say, and like
Yeah.
yeah, it's real.
I mean, I when I was a young man, I used to go, what do they call it? Commando, no underwear. But as I've gotten older, it become harder because those parts are sensitive. And then, you got the seam of a pair of jeans and they twist the wrong way. And, oh, whoa, what's that? So I never go without underwear now because I'm trying to protect them. I want to get another 20, 30 years out of them, I'm hoping. But these underwear are amazing. And today I'm wearing they're kind of like autumn color camo. They're like gold and light brown, and they're so beautiful looking. But I noticed something else. It's not just the design of the pouch, right? So you designed a compartmentalized pouch so people can separate their parts in the underwear, which is brilliant, because most of us just end up with this smushed mound of flesh at the end of the day. When we take our underwear off, it's like, this keeps things separated, keeps things in their place, and keeps things from getting sweaty and stinky.
Exactly.
But this material seems to wick really well.
Yeah, it's so good. It's a modal fabric, and we did just release a bamboo, and we have a mesh, but all of the fabrics are designed to keep everything even cooler than, in addition to the design. And we're not the only company also with the pouch system. I just want to point that out. So like, just because the idea has been floating around and other people are catching on, and we just happen to think we have the best, a pouch and fabric and branding, and like working with guys like you, like superhuman people. The last interview was fascinating. That was really cool. I know.
I saw you back there listening about cancer. They're great. Those two. They're really amazing.
So cool. And the fasting, and I try to do my intermittent fasting, but I find it's not that easy because I have to take vitamins in the morning, and then if I don't have a little bit of like oatmeal, then my stomach will get upset because I'm a sissy.
Well, so there's a fasting mimicking diet too. If you stay under 600 calories a day, that's pretty much like fasting. So you could still have like the one thing that won't quote unquote break your fast is fat. So theoretically, you could get coconut oil and coffee together, or tea or whatever, and you could take your supplements with that if you want to.
That's a good point.
And that won't break your fast. Fat won't break your fast. It'll keep you in that starvation state, if you will, for lack of better terms.
I love it. Your show is amazing. You're really providing a lot of good insight for people to stay healthier longer, and including the sheath. We got to stay on topic, sheath underwear, but all of your interviews that I've heard so far have just been very enlightening. So I want to thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. And thank you for being a sponsor. And I tell the audience this all the time. All this information comes to you for free because of sponsors like Robert Patton. And that's why I always say, whenever possible, patronize the sponsors. Please. Because they make the show possible. I've been doing this for 16 years now because of our sponsors.
Yeah. And we've been seeing people coming from Superhuman Radio. We get the code. And so use the code Superhuman. You'll save 20%. And we're seeing it come through. So thank you to all of your listeners out there that are supporting us. And hopefully you get, something out of it and appreciate the value of the underwear. If not, we have that 100% money back guarantee on your first pair. So if you don't like it, there's no risk. We'll just send your money back, and you don't have to send back the underwear.
And very few companies really do that these days.
It was scary.
You don't even have to send back the underwear. That is pretty generous, really.
When we started that policy quite a while ago, and I was like nervous. Yeah, I'm like, what if everyone returns them? Then we're going to just go out of business. But it's such a rare, like less than 1%, probably like less
most
than
people.
1.
Most people are honest. The truth of the matter is, we like to think that everybody's devious because the devious people seem to get the most exposure on Instagram and all that stuff. But the reality is that the majority of Americans are honest, decent people.
Absolutely.
And you can, I was traveling to Baltimore. It was I landed in Baltimore. I was on my way to Connecticut. It was Christmas time. And this is when we all had Palm Pilots. Remember the Palm Pilot?
Oh, wow. Yeah. Like
So I had a
BlackBerry.
Palm Pilot, and what I used to do is I used to go to MapQuest, copy all of my directions for all of my appointments, and put it in Palm Pilot under the time of the appointment. I was very organized when I was in outside sales, and I got on the bus or the train at Baltimore to go to another terminal to catch a flight to Connecticut, and realized I left my Palm Pilot where I was sitting on the train. And it had everything, it had my credit cards in it, it had my ID in it, and like, how am I going to check into my hotel? When I landed in Connecticut, the girl at the desk says, "Hey, I think we have a call for you." So, yeah, you just died. Your volume just went down. I can't hear you.
There we go.
Oh, there you go. So the girl says to me when I'm getting off the plane, and I walk up, and I was going to tell her like I lost something. She goes, "Oh, we have a phone call for you." So I pick up the phone and I talked to this woman, this really nice woman, and she goes, "Are you Carl Lenore?" I says, "Yes." She goes, "I have your wallet with this computer in it." And so I said, "Where are you?" She says, "Well, I'm at this gate." I says, "Can you hand it to the gate agent and tell them?" What they did was they put it on a plane.
Wow.
And it was in Connecticut. Like 2 hours later, I got it. I checked it. And that was the moment in time that I thought to myself, people are basically very decent.
Yeah.
Really
Yeah, they're not what you see on the news. I was just traveling this weekend, and I was sitting next to a nice lady. And usually I will just put my headphones on and take a nap or play, whatever, chill out. But she wanted to talk. And so we started talking and had a very nice conversation. But at the end of it all, we were just thinking, like, isn't it so crazy that if you watch the news, you'll think that everyone is out to get each other, and I was like, look around, like everyone's being nice, like there's no bigotry or racism, and I know there is, but they make it seem like
they make it seem like that's all it is
everywhere.
In fact, I was kidding around with a friend of mine last year. I said, I'm going to get a T-shirt that says "I like black people," and just put it on and wear it, because it's like I feel like the media tries to divide us, and they want black people to think that white people hate them, and they want white people to think that black people hate them. And I got a lot of black friends, and I thought, I'm just going to make a T-shirt that says "I like black people" and put it out there. But then
they're good people. They're not all like in the movies.
They're just like us. They're
people.
Want the same things we want. They want to be left alone. They want to earn. They want to have a great life. They want to raise their children. They want to have joyous holidays. They're like everybody else.
Yeah, we're all human.
The media wants us to think that all there is hate in this country. It's really, really sad. It's really sad.
So it's freaky, because it's like they want us to rely on them and not on ourselves, and working together instead of relying on them to solve all our problems that they create. I'm just kidding, but
no, you're right. Yeah, I know you said you're kidding, but you're right. And I mean, it's really a sad state that America is in, because we really are the greatest country in the world. Look,
so good.
Look, every day, tens of thousands of people try to break into the United States with the hope of capitalism and a future to raise their kids. And then we have these idiots on the news telling us how bad America is. If it's so bad, why are those people trying to break in and get here? Why aren't they just staying where they are?
It's a land of opportunity.
It's better than where they are. Yes, it's better than where they are.
I was able to make sheath out of like thin air, just an idea, a hope, and a dream, and like then of course some hard work and determination over a decade. But it can be done, and if I can do it, I'm not like this special, gifted, super talented, extra good-looking genius. I'm just a regular guy that had an idea that I followed through on, and maybe you couldn't do that in another country, but America, you got to give it credit,
Yeah, this is the greatest country in the world. Do we have our problems? Absolutely. But do we have a democratic process to deal with our problems? Absolutely.
Exactly.
So, no, I agree with you 1,000%.
Yeah.
But anyway, getting back to the topic at hand, these are the underwear for your man. If you're a gal watching the show today, buy your husband some sheath underwear. He will put them on, and he will give you a big hug and a kiss, and he won't be all sweaty when he comes home. And who knows? Something may happen.
You're gonna like the way he looks. I've heard that like from a lot of women, and so you get a lot of compliments down. And when you're just wearing the underwear, you look a little bit better.
Yes, Elisa said, I didn't want to say this, right? Elisa says when you wear the sheath, your package looks so much bigger.
It's a tiny little aspect of it all. It does.
I thought to myself, should I take that as a compliment or is that a slam? Like my package really isn't that big. And no, she says, really, you should tell people on the air that your package looks bigger because women wear Spanx so their body look a certain way. So sheath makes you look like you got more carrying around stuff.
And here's another like aspect to, so it's okay. So it allows for more like blood flow. So when you're all smashed up against yourself, you're gonna like shrink. You're gonna get all shriveled. It's gonna be a whole big old mess, tiny little mess, or whatever. But with the sheath, it allows for better blood flow. So you are actually like bigger, so to speak.
This is a big deal. What you're saying, I know. So let me go back. One of the reasons that men end up with ED is this exact reason: poor blood flow to the penis. Now, some of them develop plaque in the penis.
Whoa! But
some of them just have poor blood flow to the penis. That's why I don't sleep with underwear.
Yeah.
You got nocturnal tumescent erections is your penis going through maintenance. And if you have tight underwear on, it can't do its job. And night after night, month after month, week after week, year after year, all of a sudden you have ED. So having your twig and berries have lots of room, lots of space, live in a bigger home is actually healthy for penis function. You're right. You're absolutely right.
I've heard it from quite a few places, so I just wanted to point that out. And I'm just a huge. It didn't even start off like that. It was all about comfort and just keeping you from being like super irritated or having the embarrassing moment of like having to unstick yourself from your leg when you're in the grocery store or in front of your mother-in-law or something.
You do that dance with the one leg.
Yeah, a little jiggle.
Hope everything just kind of falls out and comes apart. Yeah.
Every guy knows what the deal is. There's just so many more benefits that kind of came about during the creation process, which is a beautiful thing. Like I'm sure as you've built this radio station, you've learned a lot, along the way. So you don't necessarily know what was going to happen. You just did it because you want, and then it flourishes and unfolds in a way that sometimes is magical or like a miracle. I feel very blessed to be in a position I am.
Katrina Miller says, I always thought being nude is awesome. Yes, it is awesome because that is really how our bodies want to be. In fact, I was in my early 20s and I was living with a cocktail waitress in Henderson, Nevada, in Vegas. And we had this beautiful home with a security wall, a tiered garden, a big pool, and we walked around naked all the time. And I had this epiphany. The more time you spend naked, the better in touch you get with yourself because the clothes you wear have this ability to make you feel a certain way about yourself. And when you're naked, you strip that away. So, Katrina, I believe what you're saying is true. From a psychological standpoint, the more time you spend naked, the better off you are. I don't care about religion and nothing like that. We were never designed to wear these kind of clothes. They're so restrictive. They imply that we are a certain type of person. They have all these meanings and dynamics. We're not meant for that. People should spend more time naked. I agree 1,000%.
I tell my wife that all the time, and she's pretty amicable. She's very generous. And but like wearing sheaths, some people also say, just to add that, it's like wearing nothing.
Yes,
I've heard it, and I could attest to that also.
Because all of that stuff that normally ends up as a stinky, sweaty mound of flesh is all separated all day long. It's great.
And like it's not supposed to be mashed up like that. No. I'm just saying. Okay, so we all agree on that.
So let's put this back up here one more time for the audience to see. Okay.
Yes, sir.
The audience needs to know that you are a sponsor and you make this show possible by being a sponsor. So show sheath underwear some love. They also have stuff for women. Elisa's been using the bralette for working out. And here's a secret. People always want to know how Elisa ages so well. She sleeps with a bando. Now she's sleeping with the bralette. Women's breasts develop wrinkles and sagging from when you're sleeping. So if you wear that little bralette or something similar to it, but the bralette is great, it keeps everything together all night long, and you wake up without all the stretching and the stretch marks and stuff. So that's what she stopped wearing the bando and she started wearing the sheath bralette. So if you go to shrnetwork.biz/sheath underwear and use the code superhuman, you'll save 20% off. And I guarantee you will not want to wear any other underwear ever again. I kid you not. There it is.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
And Sean Wasson, who apparently is wearing them, says they're very comfortable for sure. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Sean. Yeah, we've had, like I said, we've had quite a few people from your network or your listeners purchase them. So again, I really appreciate it. It doesn't go unnoticed. We're not like, oh, you're just another number. Like every single customer is so important. And if you call or email, we're going to get back to you. We're going to take care of you. It's like white glove treatment, whatever you need, we got you. If you mess up the order, we'll fix it. You know what I mean?
Right. And there you go. So show Robert Patton some love. Go to Sheath Underwear and buy some underwear for your man. Buy them for you. Buy the bralette and sleep in the bralette. It'll keep your boobs looking youthful for decades. And that's it. Thank you so much for the support, Robert.
Thank you, Carl. I'll see you again maybe soon.
Yeah, probably in a few weeks. Definitely. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Take care. Have a great week.
And that's it for today. We'll see you tomorrow. Oh, tomorrow we have a really good show. Everybody thinks anabolic steroids are just about building muscle. Well, there are disease states that anabolic steroids help. We're going to have Dr. George Touliatos on all the way from Athens, Greece, to talk about using anabolic steroids to reverse disease states. So you don't want to miss that show. We'll see you tomorrow with more Superhuman Radio. Thank you so much for being here today.